I think the key here is common frustrations. And I want to start there because I can go down a list of a lot of frustrations that we hear. Some of them could be, small, minute things, but they're frustrations. I don't want to minimize those. But there's definitely some that are common, but also really important. And they're important in the sense that I think the cloud vendors need to hear it. And the hope is that they're going to hear it from a third party like Upper Edge, like myself, who I have no stake in the game, right? I'm not here to tell cloud vendors their products aren't good or bad. We don't make recommendations. At the end of the day, the cloud vendors, I think, need to at least listen to some of the things that we're hearing with the hope that by listening and by thinking through, not reacting to being asked by their cloud vendors themselves, by the customers, but thinking about it and be proactive, the hope there is that these frustrations will be addressed. So I want to start there, right? So what are those frustrations? Number one, I would say, and I never like to say 100% of the time, but I'm going to say 100% of the time, the conversations that I have with, whether it's an IT executive, whether it's a line of business executive, whoever it may be that owns the relationship with the cloud vendor, after doing work with them, it becomes very clear that they haven't used all of the functionality, all of the features associated with the products that they just subscribed to. So think about this. 3 years ago, 2 years ago, there was this aggressive push by the cloud vendor to adopt this net new product, and everyone's excited. Then they implement it, and that's great, and the box is checked. But when it comes down to actual feature use, the fact of the matter is, the vast majority of customers tell me, look, we haven't used all of the features. Forget the product, although I'll tell you, there's been instances where I'm talking 6 months pre a renewal, and a customer's coming to me and say, we have yet to even use the product. Sales Cloud, ITSM, pick your favorite cloud solution. But what I'm talking about is a granular assessment of the features, so the parts within the whole. And when they look at it, they're like, we haven't used 40%, 50%, 60% of our products, and we've been paying and we've been subscribing to. Then they say, okay, some of that's on us. Okay, some of it's on us. We're gonna figure that out to correct it. But the fact of the matter is, where was X cloud vendor? Have they shown up? Have they asked us? Last time I checked, it's cloud-based, so they should be able to see what we're using and not using. So have they come by? Have they been present? Have they been asking what they can do to help? Have they offered training? Have they offered investments, time? Have they offered anything? How about free sessions guidance at Dreamforce or at Knowledge, whatever it may be? Have they done that? And the answer most always across the board is no, 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 no. So you want to talk frustration? Now they're really frustrated because what's going on at the same time is they're getting an email or an offer for lunch or let's grab a coffee and let's talk about this new product that we think is going to be valuable to you. So the frustration is, why are you so focused? I know why, but where have you been? Where have you been to ensure that we're getting the value out of the products that we're already subscribed to and paying for? So that's frustration number one. The second one, why are you now on top of all of this? Why do you have the audacity to come to me and tell me that I am looking for or expecting you to not only renew, so I don't feel like I have to sell you anything, but you're actually gonna hit me with a price increase on top of all of this? The combination of those two things are incredibly frustrating, and I am telling you that it is changing conversations currently right now to a conversation of not what more can we do, but who else does what they do. The funny thing about what they can do, what a cloud vendor can do, I always struggle with this, right? I obviously am an advisor. We go in and help organizations, and I know the value of what we do. But quite honestly, this question, this answer seems so obvious to me, right? What they can do first, stop selling. So when you have already made a sale, focus on ensuring that the sale of the thing becomes the thing you sold. So in cloud vendors and cloud subscriptions, cloud products, this is incredibly important, right? So check in. Forget just the implementation time. How'd it go? Hey, I want to do a workshop. Pull in your business leaders, whoever you want to identify. How can you get more out of your cloud subscription? We just made an update. How can you get use out of it? Hey, would you like to do a call or a video conference? Maybe on my actual cloud software, Zoom, Slack, Teams. Why don't you do a conference call with another client who got a lot of success on the next feature? Do things proactively, not when you're asked, right? No one wants to have to ask to get something, okay? What makes a frustration go away is not created in the first place. So be proactive, offer, check in. And I keep saying check in. I know that sounds simple, but I'm telling you, a simple how's it going, not when can we meet to talk about, goes a long way. The other thing that cloud vendors can do, and I talked about price increases, and I know that's tactical, but trust me, the combining of the two, the compounding is big. Here's another thing you could do. When you come to the table and say, look, we really think there's value here, we want to sell you this product. The natural thing, especially in cloud, given the margins, 80, 90% margins, you're gonna offer a deep discount. We're all smart. We all know what you're doing, right? And that's great. Often that discount is not as good as it could have been. But the fact of the matter is, why don't you follow up with, as soon as it comes out of your mouth, this special discount should be followed with, and it's good for 6 years. Your next 2 renewals. And we'll cap the increase at a small percentage, right? So give the aggressive discount, do what you do, it probably can be better, but do that, and then follow it immediately. Like bullet 1, deep discount. Bullet 2, good for your next 2 to 3 renewals, right? Give long-term commitments out of the gate. Again, why wait to be asked? And I will tell you right now, I've been doing this a long time. I cover all the cloud vendors. If they simply did that as a matter of practice, they would win simply on differentiation. They would win simply on that's unique, that feels different, that assures me that they're not just trying to lock me in and then make up for it later. And I know what cloud vendors are thinking, right? And I've seen email responses and I've heard response to this. Well, you know, there's rev rec, or they'll talk about the fact that, well, you know, we can't really make that long commitment, but trust us, we'll treat you good later. And that's great, it really is. But here's the thing. 1, in the cloud industry, that sales rep most likely in 3 years will not be there. 2, stand by what you say you're going to be in the future because it's inevitably in your interest, right? So if you led with, don't need to trust me, I'm going to show you I have to do it, it's going to strengthen the idea around trust, which, by the way, is going to help you longer term. And why is it really going to help you? Long-term price commitments, and I really just wish there'd be a universal change here. It's not going to happen, but the ones that figure this out and do it will win. They'll win in this regard. I know these cloud vendors need to put big numbers out there. Salesforce, we're 17 billion. We're going to grow to 35. Google Cloud, we're going to grow, right? We just released our annual revenue run rate for cloud. We're going to grow. ServiceNow, McDermott comes in. We're a $3 billion company. We're going to become 10, right? You need to grow. But at the end of the day, here's what's going to happen. If you're going to try to put tactical means to increase your pricing so that you can grow your revenue, you will fail. Because here's what you need to understand. If you remove that from the equation, if you give out of the gate, it's going to give you more opportunities to do what you want to do later, sell more products. If you make the investments to ensure the products are being used, like we talked about a minute ago, you're going to get more meetings to sell more stuff. But you got to do the commitments now. It seems obvious, right? But I'm telling you, it doesn't matter what vendor it is, this is universally frustrations for the base of customers we work with. Yeah, so on top of all of this, right, I talk about long-term commitment, make the vendor give you long-term commitments, and here's what's gonna happen. They're gonna say, well, what they're gonna say is, well, we gotta think about that. I don't know if we can do it. But when they get around, they're gonna ask for a long-term commitment back. And so inevitably, the people that we're advising, the CIO, the line of business, whoever it may be, procurement, they'll say, hey, I heard you shouldn't give long-term commitments to cloud vendors. The world's gonna change. I wanna have flexibility to get in and out. And that's all well and good. And it's true. But what I'm talking about is the commitment and the contractual relationship that affords you the opportunity to make it easier for them, the cloud vendor, to do what they want. So you're not making a commitment necessarily in the, we're gonna give you 10 years of term. What you're doing is you're making a commitment into them by affording them an opportunity to show them that you're thinking about them in that context. You're thinking about the roadmap, and what you're really doing is you're giving them a long-term commitment through your immediate actions of thinking about them in a way that you're trying to give them the keys, the success, how to do it, and the way to do it is to give us this. Now, 5-year deals, we don't typically recommend them, but they exist, and if the circumstances are correct, we would advise to do them, but you have to have flexibility in it. You also have to look at outside of the vacuum for which advice is typically given. Like, in general, should you sign a 5-year deal? No. In general, should you sign a 10-year deal? No. But that's general, that's industry. But specifics in the scenarios around what would work best, that could be appropriate. Now again, that's in a vacuum. It'd have to have protections, it'd have to have flexibility, and on top of all of this, while you're doing this, you cannot be doing this at the procurement account rep level. This is about building sustainable, long-term committed relationships, executive to executive. That's always appropriate, always appropriate. If it funnels down to the contract, it could be appropriate, it could be, but what we're really talking about here is you vendor need to earn and win my business. You need to give me the long-term commitment, because let's not forget this, right? Especially as there's more alternatives. Let's not forget what we're talking about. You, the cloud vendor, whether I'm working with you yet or not, you still have the obligation to win my business. You don't get my business. So I don't have to give back the same kind of long-term commitment that I'm looking for from you, because guess what? That's not my role. But I can give you long-term commitments about access. I can give you long-term commitments about being part of our roadmap discussions. I can give you long-term commitments about doing the right thing for you for references, being part of conferences. We can do all that. And by the way, maybe we could give you a long-term contract, but you don't just get that as a give. Actual use is beneficial to them. So earlier I said, it's crazy that they're not just in here trying to get me to use more of the products. Where have they been? Why are they not getting the features? The fact of the matter is, that's gonna change because the executives that are running these cloud vendors are understanding that it's that use that's gonna unlock future value. But that right now is still a thesis. It is still a what I'm gonna tell the public we're going to do. We're not seeing it in practice. But the win-win aspect of what all negotiations should result in hinges around use. Because if you think about what I said, use for the enterprise, they get more value. They want these cloud vendors to be proactive to bring it to them. But in turn, vendors need to understand, especially cloud, that use will make them more sticky. If there's more use of their product, it's harder to leave. If there's more use, it's easier to sell the next thing that tethers to it. If there's more use, it's easier to keep out alternatives, right? So inevitably it becomes a win-win scenario. And ultimately, if they start doing the right things and focusing on the right things, at the end of this, they don't have to rely on that 7% contractual ability to increase pricing, right? Because they can sell more and get more use, which ends up impacting revenue, but it also allows for actual value received by their customer base.